Hello everyone. In 2025, North Korea is a country known for its strict surveillance, silence, and controlled life. Under the leadership of Kim Jong-un, this country is like a giant machine that keeps running without room for doubt or questioning. Nothing can shake the foundations that Kim Jong-un has built. No one can break through the depths of the iron wall surrounding him, until one day, a small, unexpected event begins to shake everything. In the presidential palace, Kim Jong-un sat in his spacious office. A large board filled with maps and diagrams still hung on the wall, and holographic screens displaying economic reports and global situations emitted a cold light. However, for the first time in recent months, he felt an emptiness in his mind. As a ruthless leader who always acted based on power and control, Kim Jong-un felt that something was missing in his life, something that couldn't be measured by wealth, power, or influence. One cold night, when the sky outside was filled with dark clouds signaling a storm, a small event occurred. Kim Jong-un received an unexpected guest, a foreign diplomat who came to discuss trade relations with Middle Eastern countries. This guest was no ordinary diplomat, but an elderly man known for his deep knowledge of various religions and cultures. Their conversation started with ordinary topics about trade and diplomacy, but it didn't take long before they began to talk about religion. The elderly man, who turned out to be a Muslim scholar, started the conversation with a story about the beauty of the month of Ramadan. His voice was calm but full of meaning, and without realizing it, his words began to seep into Kim Jong-un's heart. In the month of Ramadan, said the scholar, we remind ourselves to be patient, to share, and to appreciate every moment of life given by God. It is a month that teaches sincerity of heart, that true wealth does not come from what we have, but from what we give to the world. Kim Jong-un listened attentively, although it seemed difficult for him to fully understand those words. For a leader who had grown accustomed to living in a harsh and powerful world, the concept of sacrifice and sharing felt foreign. Yet, for some reason, there was something in the scholar's story that awakened curiosity within him. Outside the window of his office, rain began to pour heavily, enveloping the city of Pyongyang in a curtain of mist. But inside, Kim Jong-un felt a change stirring in his heart. The silence he usually felt was now replaced by a feeling that was hard to explain. Questions began to arise in his mind, about his life, about the world he led, and about the true meaning of power. The next day, Kim Jong-un ordered that a library filled with books on various world religions and traditions be brought to the palace. He wanted to understand more about what the scholar had talked about. No one knew that behind the palace doors, this hard leader began to explore a world far different from the political world he had always known. For days, he busied himself with books discussing the history of Islam, the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, and especially about the month of Ramadan. He read diligently, every word and sentence seeming to provide answers to the emptiness he had felt all this time. However, the more he learned, the deeper his curiosity grew. What truly lay behind these teachings? What could this religion offer a leader who already had everything? Kim Jong-un knew that this step could have serious consequences. If anyone found out that he had started admiring the teachings of Islam, it would shake the entire world, including the leaders within his own country who had always supported him. However, the curiosity and the search for peace he felt grew stronger, greater than his fear. In the quiet of the night, when the whole palace was asleep, Kim Jong-un stood before the large mirror in his office. With a sharp gaze, he looked at himself. He felt a powerful urge within him, something greater than mere power, something that demanded him to act, to understand the world in a deeper way. That night, he made a decision that would change his entire life. He would embark on a journey to understand more about Ramadan, about Islam, and about the peace hidden in this religion. Kim Jong-un, the dictator known for his harsh policies, was now on the brink of a major change, a change that would shake the world and perhaps alter the fate of the entire North Korean people. After the meeting with the foreign scholar, Kim Jong-un felt a strong urge to learn more about Islam, a religion that was beginning to captivate his heart. The next day, amidst his routine governmental duties, he ordered his advisors to bring various books and literature about world religions, especially Islam. They were given a special task to find manuscripts about Islamic teachings, its history, and the holy month of Ramadan. In the isolated palace, Kim Jong-un began his search. He studied ancient texts, read translations of the Quran, and delved into interpretations that explained the deep meanings of each verse. Day by day, he became immersed in a world far removed from the political interests and power that had surrounded him for so long. But behind every page he read, there was a sense of peace he found, something he had never felt before. At night, in his quiet office, Kim Jong-un stared at the open pages of the Quran before him. He was captivated by every sentence written by the wise scholars. One verse that particularly touched his heart was Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 183, which reads, "O you who have believed, decreed upon you is fasting as it was decreed upon those before you that you may become righteous." Even though he didn't fully understand all the historical and spiritual context behind the verse, there was a feeling in his heart that made him realize that this was not just about physical fasting, but something deeper. It was about patience, about self-control, about improving one's relationship with God, and about giving to others. Kim Jong-un's days began to change. As dawn arrived, instead of checking economic reports or troop movements, he often opened the Quran and reflected. He became increasingly curious about the teachings of caring for others, especially during the month of Ramadan, a time so sacred for Muslims, where they not only refrain from food and drink, but also remember the importance of sharing with the less fortunate. He read about how Muslims welcome the holy month with joy, how they fill the nights with prayers, and how they give food to the poor. All of this felt so contrasted with the life he had lived, a life full of control, tension, and uncertainty. As the nights grew longer, Kim Jong-un began to feel a profound change within himself. He felt connected to the teachings he was studying, but doubts continued to linger. How could this be accepted in such a closed-off country? What if his people opposed him? What if the international community saw him as a threat because of his personal decision to explore a religion that had never existed in North Korea? But despite that, there was a sense of peace beginning to dominate his heart. He felt that nothing was more important than finding peace in life, and Islam, with its teachings of simplicity and peace, offered the answers he had been seeking all along. One morning, after months of studying Islam, Kim Jong-un felt that the time had come. He decided to do something very risky, something no one around him had ever imagined. He wanted to speak more deeply with a scholar, someone who could help him understand Islam better, who could guide him on this spiritual journey. Without telling anyone, Kim Jong-un called the scholar who had previously visited the palace. The foreign guest, now abroad, returned to Pyongyang after receiving a personal invitation from the leader. They met in a hidden room within the palace complex, a room far removed from public view. There, under the dim light, Kim Jong-un asked a difficult question. "What must I do to truly understand Islam? How can I follow this teaching sincerely with all my heart?" he asked. his voice slightly trembling, although he tried to keep his expression calm. The scholar looked at him silently for a moment, then gently replied, "What you need, sir, is not just knowledge, but a sincere intention. Islam teaches us to start with a clean heart, with pure intentions, and with love for others." Those words seemed to pierce through the strong walls that had protected him from the outside world. For the first time, Kim Jong-un felt that he was not just the leader of a nation, but a human being who was also searching for a deeper meaning in life. It was then that a thought began to flow in Kim Jong-un's mind. He knew that the decision to follow this path would not be easy. It would shake the world. But if he wanted to bring peace to his people, not just through power, but through a deeper understanding of life and relationships, maybe this was the path he had to choose. In the quiet of the night, after their conversation ended, Kim Jong-un sat in his chair, gazing at the sky through the window. The stars appeared so bright that night, as if signaling that the steps he would take would not only change himself, but also the entire country he led. His search would begin. Now, Kim Jong-un was ready to enter a new chapter in his life. A chapter filled with challenges, but also filled with hope and possibilities. A week after his private meeting with the scholar, Kim Jong-un felt something stirring within him, a force he could not ignore. Every night, as he reflected alone in his grand office, his thoughts would return to what he had learned about Islam, and especially about the month of Ramadan. There was something profound and touching in the teachings about self-discipline, giving to those in need, and fostering peace with others. Yet, despite feeling increasingly drawn to these teachings, a great question continued to haunt his mind. Was this the right decision? As the leader of a country known for its harsh and firm stance, he knew that embracing a religion almost unknown to his people, especially in North Korea, would cause a huge controversy. There would be opposition, perhaps even accusations of betrayal. North Korea, a country known for its authoritarian system and highly controlled leadership, had never allowed room for religious freedom. For years, its people had only known one ideology, a very narrow worldview. If news of this spread, that the supreme leader of the country had embraced Islam, it would shake the social and political structure of the nation. And the international community, their reaction would be far harsher. Yet, despite all the considerations surrounding him, Kim Jong-un felt an overwhelming urge, a belief growing within him. He felt a peace he had never known before in the teachings of Islam. It wasn't just about the command to fast during Ramadan or the other rituals, but about a deeper understanding of life and humanity, about how we must be grateful for what we have and how we must share with those less fortunate. On that quiet night, after days of reflection, Kim Jong-un decided to take a monumental step, a step that could change not only his life but also the fate of the country he led. If I am to lead North Korea to peace, to a better future, I must start with myself, he thought. This is not just about religion. It's about setting an example for the people, about changing the path of life that has been filled with violence and tension. With firm resolve, Kim Jong-un decided to recite the Shahada and declare himself a Muslim. Ashhadu alla ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. As these words left his lips, a profound sense of relief washed over him, as if a long-held burden had finally been lifted. But this decision was not the end of his journey. It was the beginning of a great transformation. After months of searching for peace in books and teachings, he now had to embark on a new journey, a journey filled with risks, one that would not only affect him but also the country and the world around him. The next day, Kim Jong-un called his closest advisors for a very important meeting. They sat in a circle in the palace conference room, their faces serious and filled with questions. Kim Jong-un, who was usually very firm and in control of every meeting, showed a different expression this time, one of calm and confidence. "I have made a decision," Kim Jong-un said, his voice echoing across the room. "I have embraced Islam. I am a Muslim." The room immediately fell silent. His advisors exchanged glances, trying to determine whether this was a joke or a real decision. However, seeing the conviction in Kim Jong-un's eyes, they knew this was not something to take lightly. "This is a very personal decision," he continued, "but I believe it is the right step for me and for this country. Islam teaches us about peace, self-control, and giving to others. All of this is crucial for North Korea's future." Some of the advisors appeared confused, while others began speaking quietly, trying to figure out how to respond without offending their leader. However, one thing was clear: the world would change after this announcement, and Kim Jong-un knew he had to be prepared for the consequences. Rumors began to spread throughout the country. Some people in Pyongyang heard about it, although very cautiously, as any conversation that didn't align with the state's policies was always closely monitored. However, the news began to leak out of the palace, and within days, the entire nation of North Korea was in shock. For most of the people, this news was startling, even shocking. How could such a powerful leader, who had long ruled the country with an iron fist, suddenly change his faith? Did this mean a major shift was coming? Or perhaps this was just a new tactic to win the sympathy of the international community? Yet there were some who felt curious. Amid the restricted life in North Korea, a few people began to wonder whether the teachings of Islam could bring the peace and change they so desperately needed. The news of Kim Jong-un embracing Islam quickly spread across the world. The international community, which had long viewed North Korea as an isolated and authoritarian state, was stunned. No one had ever imagined that the leader of such a hardline country would turn to a religion so unknown to many in his own nation. International media began reporting on the story, filled with speculation. Some countries mocked Kim Jong-un's decision, seeing it as a form of political manipulation or an attempt to improve his international image. However, others saw it as a positive step, a signal that North Korea might be moving towards peace and greater openness. But what mattered most was what would happen in North Korea. Kim Jong-un knew that the international community would continue to watch him, and this decision would determine whether he was truly committed to bringing change to his country, or whether it was merely a temporary move. After the announcement that shook the world, Kim Jong-un embarked on a new phase of his life. His decision to embrace Islam not only brought a change within him, but also in the direction of the country he led. However, behind this significant step, a great test soon came. Both domestically and internationally, Kim Jong-un had to face a series of unexpected challenges. Challenges that tested his faith and his ability to lead. In North Korea, this change sparked concern among the political elite and military leaders. Many saw Kim Jong-un's decision as a high-risk move, especially since their country had long been isolated from the outside world, and the majority of the population had never known about Islam. The factions loyal to Kim Jong-un began to question whether this move would weaken their grip on power. Closed-door meetings were held in various parts of the government to discuss this issue. Senior advisors who had previously supported hardline policies and extreme nationalism began to grow anxious. "I don't know if this is a wise decision, sir," said one senior advisor, his face serious. "We know that Muslims are only a small minority in the world, and in North Korea there are hardly any, if any, who practice Islam. This could lead to instability." Kim Jong-un, who had already prepared himself for this resistance, was unfazed. With a gaze full of confidence, he replied, "I understand your concerns. However, I believe we are heading towards a more peaceful future. What we need now is change, not just externally, but also within ourselves." Yet, even as he spoke firmly, Kim Jong-un knew there was much more to be done to convince both the people and his political elite of his decision. He began planning the next step, to build the first mosque in North Korea, a tangible symbol of the change he wished to create. Soon after his major announcement, Kim Jong-un received a call from a renowned Islamic scholar. The scholar, a respected leader in the Muslim world, reached out to Kim Jong-un to offer moral support. In their very personal conversation, the scholar expressed his surprise at Kim Jong-un's decision and congratulated him on his remarkable courage. "Mr. Kim," said the scholar, "your decision is a significant step, not only for you but for your nation as well. We, in the Muslim world, pray that you are granted the strength to face this with patience and wisdom." Those words deeply touched Kim Jong-un. He knew the path he had chosen would be fraught with challenges, but the scholar gave him hope that the path of truth would always be there, no matter how dark the world around us might be. At that moment, Kim Jong-un felt more confident that he was not alone on this journey. The news of Kim Jong-un's decision soon spread across the world. From Washington to Moscow, from Beijing to Riyadh, the world could not ignore this event. Different countries gave varied reactions. Western countries, which had long viewed North Korea with suspicion and tension, looked at Kim Jong-un's decision with doubt. They questioned whether this was just a new strategy in international diplomacy or a deeper change in Kim Jong-un's personality and the direction of North Korea's policies. Some world leaders began to make negative comments, stating that Kim Jong-un's decision could be a tool to gain international sympathy. North Korea is always looking for ways to justify its authoritarian actions, said a U.S. diplomat, commenting on the news. "We must be cautious. This could be a new tactic to deceive the world." However, there were also those who viewed it more positively. In the Arab world and other Muslim-majority countries, many offered their support. Some leaders from the Middle East began sending messages to Kim Jong-un, expressing their support for the changes he was making. Some even proposed sending a team of scholars to help with religious education in North Korea as part of an effort to introduce Islamic teachings more deeply. Kim Jong-un knew that to demonstrate his commitment to the faith he had chosen, he had to do something very tangible. The first mosque in North Korea would become the symbol of the change he wished to create, a proof that he wasn't just talking about change but actually putting it into practice. A few months after the announcement, the construction of the first mosque began in Pyongyang, the country's capital. This mosque was not an ordinary building. With its beautiful design and stunning Islamic architecture, it became a symbol of a future that was more peaceful and open. The people of North Korea, who had never seen a mosque before, began to gather to witness the extraordinary process of its construction. However, even though Kim Jong-un felt this was the right step, he knew there was still much to be done to convince his people and the world that this change was more than just symbolic. Inside the palace, important meetings were held to discuss what would happen next, how Islamic teachings could be spread in a way that was safe and would not disrupt the country's stability. On the other hand, he also thought about the future. What should he do if there was resistance from within the country or from the outside world? Could he maintain his integrity as a Muslim while also being the leader of a nation facing so many challenges? One morning, Kim Jong-un decided to do something very rare. He wanted to meet directly with his people. After months of hiding his personal feelings and decisions, He now felt it was time to speak to them openly. At a large event in Pyongyang, Kim Jong-un stood before his people, speaking with resolve and confidence. He shared his spiritual journey, how he had found peace in Islam, and how the teachings of Islam emphasize self-control, peace, and compassion toward others. "What I am doing is not just for myself," Kim Jong-un said with a deep voice, "but for this country. I want us all to live in peace, to share with those in need, and to build good relationships with the world." This statement shocked many people. Some were stunned, while others began to reflect. The people of North Korea, who had lived in uncertainty for so long, began to see Kim Jong-un not just as their leader, but also as a human being who wanted to bring about a profound change in their lives. After a series of significant decisions that shook both the country and the world, Kim Jong-un found himself at a critical juncture. The construction of the first mosque in Pyongyang continued, but this marked more than just physical development. It was a symbol of the transformation occurring within the leader himself and, slowly, within the country he governed. However, despite the visible progress, Kim Jong-un knew that many challenges still lay ahead. Internal conflicts, tensions with party leaders, and the challenge of maintaining political stability in a country that had long been isolated. At the same time, the international community continued to pay attention to these developments, raising both support and opposition that would test Kim Jong-un's resolve and commitment. In North Korea, while some viewed this change as a progressive step, many felt uneasy or even threatened by Kim Jong-un's decision. Some political elites, including key figures in the Workers' Party, felt that Islam was not only a foreign religion to North Korea, but it could also pose a threat to the ideology they had long upheld, an ideology built on nationalism and absolute control over every aspect of the people's lives. One high-ranking party official, Jang Il-suk, a former close ally of Kim Jong-un, voiced his concerns. "Mr. Kim, you know well that our people have been taught to hold fast to the teachings of Jewish ideology. Opening the door to foreign teachings, especially Islam, is a huge risk. We could lose control over the people's thinking, and that could lead to instability." Kim Jong-un listened attentively, but his resolve remained firm. "Jang Il-suk, we cannot continue to live in fear and tension. I made this decision not just for myself, but for the future of North Korea. If we keep isolating ourselves, we will be trapped in ignorance. We need change." Although some senior officials tried hard to persuade Kim Jong-un to hold back his progressive steps, Kim Jong-un pressed forward. He began introducing basic education about Islam among government officials, inviting several scholars to give lectures on tolerance, peace, and the basic teachings of Islam. However, resistance still lingered, hidden behind closed-door meetings. Political uncertainty grew more apparent, as every step Kim Jong-un took now became a turning point in the governance of the nation. The first mosque in Pyongyang, named Al-Rahman Mosque, was finally completed. The design of the building blended magnificent Islamic architecture with elements of North Korean culture, creating a unique and striking structure that caught the attention of many. Though there were few Muslims in the country, the mosque became a powerful symbol of the change Kim Jong-un sought to implement. The construction of the mosque drew significant attention within the country. Some citizens became curious, while others began questioning the rationale behind Kim Jong-un's decision. Was this mosque truly a religious symbol, or merely a tool to attract the international community's attention? Some even began visiting the mosque, despite knowing little about Islam. The most intriguing reaction, however, came from the North Korean military. The generals, who had long been loyal to Kim Jong-un's ideology, appeared uneasy at this development. They feared that this step could shake the established order they had maintained for so long. At times, in closed-door meetings, they whispered about the possibility of a major shift leading to uncontrolled external influence. But Kim Jong-un did not retreat. He knew that this was the right step for both the country and himself. He also believed that Islam, with its teachings of peace and brotherhood, could bring the much-needed peace to this isolated nation. With the first mosque now standing firmly, Kim Jong-un saw this as the first step of a much larger transformation. On this journey, he didn't just want to change the direction of the country, but also build better relationships with the outside world, particularly with the Muslim world. Although North Korea's diplomatic relations with Western nations were often tense, the Muslim world presented an opportunity that he had never considered before. Kim Jong-un decided to invite world Muslim leaders to Pyongyang. One of the leaders who attended was Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the United Arab Emirates, who openly expressed his support for Kim Jong-un's decision to embrace Islam and build a mosque in North Korea. During his visit, Sheikh Abdullah not only offered moral support, but also suggested establishing Islamic educational institutions in North Korea. "Mr. Kim, you have made a historic decision," Sheikh Abdullah said in an official meeting. "We are ready to help North Korea on this journey, providing access to religious education, as well as supporting mosques and Islamic institutions." Kim Jong-un was pleased with this offer. He knew that building closer ties with Muslim countries could be a significant advantage for his nation. Furthermore, international support would bolster North Korea's image in the world. However, as time passed, international reactions began to show greater tension. Some countries, particularly large Western nations, began to view Kim Jong-un's policies with increasing skepticism. The decision to open up to Islam, though it could be seen as a step toward peace, also raised concerns about the influence of external ideologies in North Korea. An intelligence report from international agencies stated that North Korea might now be opening the door to a greater influence from Muslim countries. Some diplomats from the United States and Europe began to voice their concerns, questioning whether this meant a significant shift in North Korea's foreign policy. Kim Jong-un knew that this was not only a test for him, but also for the future of the nation he led. As North Korea's relationships with the Muslim world developed, more and more parties began to take notice. The world would continue to watch, assess, and decide the next steps based on what happened in North Korea. Kim Jong-un's decision to embrace Islam and open the door to new teachings in North Korea has now begun to show ever greater consequences. The first mosque built in Pyongyang, a symbol of this monumental change, has become the focal point of global attention. However, while the Muslim world has expressed support, not everyone within the country and the international community views this step in the same light. Political unrest in North Korea has intensified, and Kim Jong-un now faces challenges greater than ever before. Within North Korea, while some of the people have begun to support Kim Jong-un's decision, many others feel increasingly threatened by these changes. The elites of the Workers' Party, who have long upheld Jewish ideology, feel that Kim Jong-un's leadership is shaking the foundations of their country. They worry that this change could weaken their grip on the people and introduce foreign influences they cannot control. A senior party member, Ri Yong-kol, who holds significant influence among high-ranking officials and the military, began to openly criticize Kim Jong-un's actions. "Mr. Kim," he said with a forceful tone in a closed meeting, "what you are doing is very dangerous. Our country has survived on the basis of nationalism and Jewish ideology. We cannot allow foreign ideologies to enter our land. This is not just about religion, but about losing control." Kim Jong-un remained calm, though his heart pounded as he listened to the increasingly harsh criticism. He knew that not everyone would accept his changes easily. "I understand your concerns," he responded with patience. "However, we must realize that the world is changing. What we need now is not just strength, but also wisdom and peace. I believe Islam teaches us to live in harmony and bring peace to everyone." Despite Kim Jong-un's unshaken demeanor, he knew the resistance would grow stronger, and he would need to find a way to unite the people in the face of this turmoil. Kim Jong-un further solidified his commitment to Islam by planning the construction of a second mosque in one of North Korea's larger cities. This was not just a physical project, but a statement that he was committed to bringing broader change across the country. The second mosque was planned to be larger and more magnificent than the first. Kim Jong-un chose to give a more prominent role to Muslim scholars from abroad to design and build the mosque, a move that many saw as a symbol of a strong partnership between North Korea and the Muslim world. However, this project brought even greater tension among the political elites. Several figures from the Workers' Party felt that the construction of a second mosque would further expose the uncontrollable changes taking place. They began to suspect that Kim Jong-un's steps were not just related to religion, but also to external influences that could alter the political order of the country. On the other hand, the military generals began to question whether this move would disturb national stability. Although they had long supported Kim Jong-un, it was becoming clear that this change was not just an internal issue, but also a major shift in North Korea's international relations. Meanwhile, the international reaction to the changes in North Korea has become increasingly varied. Large nations such as the United States and European countries have grown more suspicious, fearing that Kim Jong-un's actions were not merely about religion, but were part of a broader diplomatic strategy. During a United Nations Security Council meeting, some member states expressed concerns about a shift in North Korea's foreign policy. An American diplomat said, "We are worried that Kim Jong-un's actions are a new tactic to gain the sympathy of the Muslim world, which could be used to create a rift in the international sanctions and policies we have set against North Korea." However, some countries were more optimistic about the change. Muslim nations like the United Arab Emirates and Qatar, which had long supported Kim Jong-un's decision to embrace Islam, welcomed the construction of the second mosque. They offered further assistance, including sending scholars and experts to help build the Muslim community in North Korea. Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the foreign minister of the United Arab Emirates, visited Pyongyang again to express his full support for Kim Jong-un. "Mr. Kim, we believe your actions are an effort to bring peace and harmony. We will continue to support North Korea in this journey, both spiritually and materially." Despite the support from some countries, international tensions remained high. Some major nations felt that North Korea was perhaps attempting to forge new relationships with the Islamic world, which could lead to political and economic alliances they could not control. Kim Jong-un decided to take a bolder step. He wanted to speak directly to the people. Despite ongoing concerns about these changes, he felt it was time to explain his efforts to the people and invite them to see Islam not as a threat, but as a teaching that could bring peace and prosperity to all. In a large event in Pyongyang, Kim Jong-un stood before thousands of North Korean citizens. Against the backdrop of the newly completed mosque, he spoke about his spiritual journey and how he felt that Islam had brought peace into his life. "I know this change is significant, and many of you are anxious," Kim Jong-un said, his voice filled with conviction. "But I want you to know that what I am doing is for our collective good. Islam teaches us to live in peace, to respect one another, and to share love with others. I want us all to experience that peace, not just in our hearts, but throughout this entire country. Many were taken aback by Kim Jong-un's words. Some eyes began to tear up, while others remained silent, reflecting on what they had just heard. Though many still didn't fully understand Islam, they could feel the sincerity in their leader's speech. However, not everyone was impressed. Among the political and military elites, some began to plan actions to thwart these changes. They believed that, while Kim Jong-un had the power to lead, such a profound transformation could jeopardize their positions of power. The growing tensions both domestically and internationally have now reached their peak. Kim Jong-un, who had decided to lead North Korea toward a more open and peaceful path, is now faced with the greatest test of his leadership journey. Betrayal, conspiracy, and defection are beginning to threaten him, but he remains steadfast in his principles. Amid ongoing changes, internal tensions are escalating. The elites of the Workers' Party, feeling threatened, have begun moving quietly to overthrow Kim Jong-un. Those who once supported his major decisions are now doubting his ability to maintain the country's stability. Issues surrounding foreign influence and foreign ideologies are beginning to be used as weapons to undermine Kim Jong-un's leadership. One of the most influential figures in this conspiracy is Kim Yong-chol, a high-ranking official who has been close to Kim Jong-un since the early days of his leadership. Kim Yong-chol, who was once loyal, is now beginning to betray him. He secretly held meetings with several party and military officials to plan actions that would shake Kim Jong-un's government. In the underground rooms of the leadership palace, Kim Yong-chol spoke to a few individuals who still felt loyal to the Jewish ideology and opposed Islam. "We cannot let this country be controlled by foreign teachings," he said in a low but firm voice. "We must act quickly to overthrow Kim Jong-un before he truly entraps North Korea in the influence of the outside world." The betrayal plan quickly spread through various circles, working swiftly behind the scenes. Some senior military generals who also felt threatened by the ideological changes joined in. They planned to seize power from Kim Jong-un through more radical means and reintroduce the harsh policies that had once defined North Korea's regime. However, they did not know that Kim Jong-un, with his exceptional intelligence, was already aware of this conspiracy. He decided to act quickly. One night, before the traitors could move, Kim Jong-un ordered a covert operation involving military intelligence to capture those involved in the conspiracy. When Kim Yong-chol and several other high-ranking officials were brought before the military court, all of North Korea was shocked. Kim Jong-un stood at the podium, his face showing no signs of regret, even though he had just overcome the greatest threat in his political career. "There are those who want to take us back to the dark times, who fear peace and change. But we will not retreat," he said firmly. "My decision to open the door to the world is for the progress of North Korea. Anyone who obstructs this change will face the consequences." Although the betrayal was thwarted, the challenge of convincing the North Korean people that this change was for the greater good remained. This event showed that while Kim Jong-un had managed to overcome internal threats, he would need to work even harder to prove that his intentions were for the common good, not to turn the country into a weaker place. However, after stabilizing the situation domestically, Kim Jong-un did not stop. He began building a broader diplomatic network with Muslim countries, offering opportunities for North Korea to integrate with the wider world. Setting aside the isolation that had long plagued the country, the United Arab Emirates and Qatar continued to support North Korea in this endeavor. They not only helped in building more mosques but also provided economic aid for infrastructure and educational development. Building these networks, particularly in trade and technology, further solidified Kim Jong-un's position as a leader who was not only preserving his power, but also striving to lead the country toward a better future. "I know we face many challenges," Kim Jong-un told the international delegates present in Pyongyang. "But I believe we can build bridges of peace with the world. We need not fear change. This is the time for North Korea to become a more open, friendly, and advanced country." Meanwhile, the international community continued to carefully monitor developments in North Korea. Some Western countries still suspected Kim Jong-un's intentions, believing that his steps toward opening up to the Muslim world were just a new strategy to gain international sympathy without changing his domestic policies. Some countries believed that even though North Korea introduced these major changes, the country still clung to the same totalitarian power. However, Muslim countries were increasingly open and enthusiastic about the changes taking place in North Korea. International organizations focused on interfaith dialogue and world peace began approaching Kim Jong-un, offering cooperation in educational and development projects to foster religious understanding and tolerance in the previously isolated country. Turkey, which has a long history of diplomatic relations with North Korea, invited Kim Jong-un to attend an international meeting on peace and international cooperation. This meeting was seen as a great opportunity for North Korea to show that the changes they were making were not just internal, but also aimed at strengthening relations with the outside world. In the end, Kim Jong-un began to feel the heavy burden of his leadership. Although the changes he brought were high risk, he was confident that this was the path he must take to create a better future for North Korea. His courage in facing betrayal, conspiracy, and criticism from many quarters demonstrated his determination. However, he knew that despite overcoming these challenges, the road to true peace and change was still long. Now, with the growing number of mosques across North Korea and expanding international cooperation, Kim Jong-un hoped to unite the country under a more inclusive vision. However, not everyone domestically and internationally would accept this easily. The testing of the changes he had introduced would continue. After facing numerous challenges, betrayals, and unavoidable international tensions, Kim Jong-un finally stands at the pinnacle of a remarkable transformation. Under his leadership, North Korea has witnessed a transformation that not only changed the face of the country but also altered the way the world views it. The mosques, built as symbols of peace, have now spread across the country, and North Korea's relations with the Muslim world and international countries have become increasingly solid. However, despite the significant steps that have been taken, the final test that will determine the future of North Korea and Kim Jong-un's leadership is now rapidly approaching. A great challenge awaits in the final chapter of this transformation. North Korea now boasts more than 10 mosques scattered throughout the country. Each mosque is not merely a place of worship, but also a center for education and peace. For the people of North Korea, who have never seen the outside world, these mosques have become symbols of openness and understanding. Every year, the grand celebration of Ramadan has become an eagerly anticipated event, with the people of North Korea beginning to celebrate this holy month with enthusiasm. Many come to see the newly built mosques, featuring Islamic architecture blended with elements of North Korean culture. Although still limited, the number of Muslims in North Korea has slowly increased. At the inauguration of the 10th mosque, located in Hamhung, Kim Jong-un stood before thousands of people, his face filled with pride. This mosque was a symbol of the significant success in North Korea's transformation journey. I stand here today not only to celebrate the success of building this mosque, he said with full confidence, but also as a symbol that we, as a nation, have moved beyond the old boundaries that separated us from the world. We will not only survive, but we will thrive. We will be a peaceful nation, ready to embrace the future together. Yet, despite the promising progress, a final wave of resistance was beginning to threaten. Several major countries, particularly Western nations, continued to view these changes with deep skepticism. They argued that while Kim Jong-un had opened the door to Islam and improved relations with Muslim countries, North Korea still had a long history as a highly closed-off and controlled nation. Some groups believe that although diplomatic relations with the Muslim world have improved, North Korea has not fully transformed in terms of political freedom and human rights. They criticized the fact that even though the country has opened the door to religion, the basic rights of the North Korean people are still severely restricted. There is no real freedom of the press, and political opposition can hardly breathe in the country. However, Kim Jong-un, now wiser, understands that significant change will not happen overnight. Although he successfully steered the country into a new path, he is also aware that the struggle to create a freer and more open society has only just begun. This is not the end of the journey, but only the beginning, he said in an interview with international media. One of the most intriguing aspects of this transformation is Kim Jong-un's own spiritual journey. His decision to embrace Islam was not just about foreign policy or international diplomacy, but also a personal quest for deeper peace. Kim Jong-un, once known as a hard and powerful leader, is now increasingly revealing a more humane and open side of himself. On several occasions, he spoke about how Ramadan and the teachings of Islam taught patience, self-control, and sharing with others. Many high-ranking officials who were once skeptical began to see this change as a sign that Kim Jong-un had evolved into a wiser and more compassionate leader. Even some prominent figures within the Workers' Party, who had fiercely opposed this change, began to show respect for their leader's decision. I have learned a lot about myself through the teachings of Islam, Kim Jong-un said in a personal speech made public. Islam teaches us to view the world with compassion, not to let hatred and fear dominate our hearts. I promise to continue guiding this country with the principles I have learned. Now, with North Korea increasingly connected to the outside world, not only through its relationship with Muslim countries but also through more open international dialogue, new hope is emerging. The mosques that have been built are not just places of worship, but bridges between North Korea and the world. They are symbols that the country, once isolated and full of fear and tension, is now beginning to open up to peace and international cooperation. The world is beginning to see North Korea in a different light. A country that was once considered a major threat to world security is now seen as a nation trying to build peaceful relations and set aside harsher policies. Of course, many challenges still lie ahead, but the bold steps taken by Kim Jong-un show that change is possible, even in the most isolated countries. In Pyongyang, on a calm evening, people from various backgrounds gather in the mosques, breaking their fast together or simply reflecting in prayer. They are symbols of the real change that is taking place. They are not only Muslims but also the people of North Korea who are now experiencing a peace they never imagined before. Kim Jong-un stands by the window of his palace, gazing at the city that is now more vibrant, more full of hope and prayer. He knows that this journey has not been easy, but he also knows that North Korea has taken its first steps toward a better future. He hopes that this change will inspire future generations to continue striving for peace, progress, and diversity.